One of the most amazing parts of the story is that when they rescued this young lady, they actually found it out. She was a 19-year-old worship leader back home in her village. She had been crying out to God, like, please, I don't want to be here. And God sent us all the way from the United States to come get her that specific night. Like, I can't make this up. It's like amazing. Hey guys, it's Tay and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my video. So for those who don't know, I actually do videos every Tuesday. I call them Testimony Tuesdays, and I really hope that you guys are being blessed by these stories. Like I said in our previous videos, God has done so much for me, and I'm just so grateful to be able to share these with you. So please click that subscribe button if you want to see more videos coming up. I'm going to really try to be as consistent as possible for you guys. And let me know what you think about this video down below. So just as a disclaimer for this video, I actually was going to miss this week's Testimony Tuesday. I wasn't feeling well at all this weekend, and I didn't have time to film a video. So I'm actually filming this on Tuesday. I'm going to post this later tonight. So I'm going to try my best to not make this video too long so that I can get this out for you guys. So this video is going to be about my experience that I had in the Philippines. So for those who don't know, I'm really passionate about helping sex trafficking survivors. I can do a whole separate video about how that came about, but I'm trying not to make this video too long. So let's just jump right into it. So I have been to the Philippines twice. My first time was in 2018, and I just went back recently in 2022, this year. I went back in around April, and I think the first trip was around April, May as well. So both times I went, it was with a mission trip. I went twice with my church, and the first time we went, it was only about 11 of us, and the second time I went, it actually was about double that. So I was really excited because in 2018, that was my first mission trip. I always wanted to go on a mission trip, but I didn't know where exactly I would go. Little did I know that this trip would completely change my life. It completely changed my faith in the way that I see God, and it also helped me to conquer one of my biggest fears. Up until this point, I had been excruciatingly afraid of flying. I don't know who else is afraid of flying, but comment down below if I'm not the only one. But I used to be very scared of flying. I would get anxiety the entire week before a trip if I knew I had to fly, and it was just really bad. So I took this trip as a leap of faith. I said, okay, God, I really feel like you're calling me to go to this trip. So I just signed up and I did it. I raised some money within a few months. And I just had a feeling that something really amazing would be happening on this trip. So I didn't let my fear stop me. I got on that plane. Y'all, this was the first time leaving the country, and I flew from Atlanta to Los Angeles and then LA straight to the Philippines. So that LA to the Philippines flight was 17 hours straight. And that was my first international flight. So just imagine, I was like a nervous wreck, but as soon as I got on a plane, y'all, I had so much peace. It was nothing but God. I had so much peace, but it was crazy to think about. I was literally in the air for over 17 hours. Like, can you imagine? And just to back up a little bit, so right before we left, we had a few meetings with the whole team that was going there just to get to know each other and pray about the trip. And our mission trip leader, he told us, one of the meetings, he told us to all think about, visualize, pray about the women that we're going to meet when we get there, the women that God wants us to rescue when we get there. So that's what I started to do. And it was one particular night specifically, I was praying about the girls that I would meet there. And I was like, God, show me their faces, show me their names. And I really felt like God gave me two specific names. So one of the names, I'm going to change her name, just respect of privacy. One of the names, we'll say Elizabeth. So I got the name Elizabeth, and I remember on the flight there to the Philippines, I was just journaling, and I was just, envisioning, the girls' faces and what it would be like being there, since I'd never been to Asia, I'd never been outside of the country. I got to the Philippines. It's an amazingly beautiful country. It's really underrated. Like, many people don't realize how beautiful it is. Not only the place, but the people are so beautiful and so kind. I didn't meet one rude person. Like both trips that I went there, the people there are just so nice and sweet. And I really consider that one of my, I consider that my second home now. I have a lot of friends and people there that I still keep in contact with. So to jump into what we were there for, so we went to a few different places, but we ended up going the last week of the trip. We were there for 2 weeks, and the last week of the trip we actually spent in this place called the Walking Street, which is in a place called Angeles City in the Philippines. And for those who don't know, it's known for sex tourism, and men from all around the world, they actually fly there to exploit the women there, the Filipino women there. And you actually can't even get into the Walking Street unless you are a foreigner. So you have to be basically a tourist to even get into the Walking Street. It's kind of like I said, it's known for sex tourism. So it's like one street that's blocked off by this gate, and it's like not very long, maybe like a mile or two long, but it's like thousands and thousands of clubs and bars stacked on top of each other. So it's like, I think they said it's thousands and thousands of girls who are there all along this one street. So it's similar to like the strip in Las Vegas. So it's just, it's just known, it just has a lot of activity, a lot of bars and a lot of different girls who live there and work there along the Walking Street. So we were kind of sent there as like secret agents. We were there to go into the bars, kind of blend in with other people who were there. But of course, we were there on a different mission. We weren't there to exploit the girls. We were there to help rescue the girls. So we went there to partner alongside a ministry called Wipe Every Tear. This amazing guy named Kenny from Idaho. He actually started this ministry, and he started it when he went to the Philippines with his daughter, and he saw the devastation that was going on with the sex trade there. And his heart just broke for everything that was going on there. So he started Wipe Every Tear. Fast forward now, 10 years later, they have several safe homes, and they've helped hundreds of women. So it's really an amazing cause, and we were there to partner alongside their mission. So basically, we got there, we split into small groups, and each group was led by a Filipino woman. And that woman, the amazing part about it was the women who led us in these small groups into these different bars, they actually were former trafficking victims. So they actually were trafficking survivors that used to work on these same bars, these same clubs, but because of people that came across the world and to do mission trips like us, they actually were able to be rescued. And not only that, but Wipe Every Tear, they actually pay for 4 years of free college for these girls, and they sponsor their families back home in the villages. So not to get too much into it, but it's a huge problem there in the Philippines. Sex trafficking is an issue wherever there's poverty. So unfortunately, it is an issue that affects the entire globe. And it's just a lot of organizations out there that are doing amazing work to help rescue these women. Okay, so 4 days out of the 2 weeks that we were there for a little less than 2 weeks. But 4 of those days we took to do night outreach on the Walking Street. So like I said, it's similar to the strip in Las Vegas. So we actually went there to the Walking Street every night for 4 nights straight. And I believe this was the second night when something incredible happened. So actually started every night meeting at a coffee shop with all the people who help with the ministry there. We would have dinner and coffee, and we would worship and pray and just, get the atmosphere ready for what we were about to do. And then we would go out onto the Walking Street and decide which bars we were going to go into that night. So we would go inside these bars, and the way that it's set up, it's really like a movie. You walk into these really small bars, and they all have these stages where these women are on stage, usually in bikinis. They're in stage with very little clothes. And some of the bars, they actually had numbers on them, like they were cattle. So they had numbers, like these little number tags on the women, and they would give the men laser pointers so that they could point to which girl that they wanted for the night. So that's how, just to set the scene, that's what we were going into. So we went into the bars, and we would walk in. Of course, the people would greet us. They'll be so happy because it's foreigners coming in. They just they assume that money is going to be spent. So honestly, y'all, we would go in and we would just pray. Obviously not to be too obvious, we had to kind of blend in with the crowd, but we would go in there just like kind of silently pray and just ask God, okay, which girl do you want me to talk to tonight? And we would go in there, we would sit there for a while until we felt like, God told us to choose a specific girl. So then we would tell the waitress that we wanted a specific girl, and they would bring her down. So in order for us to even talk to the girl, we had to pay a drink for them. So you can't just sit there and talk to girls all night and not pay anything. So you actually had to, every single girl that we talked to, we had to like make sure that they had a drink. And it wasn't always alcoholic. Sometimes, most of the time, they would just order water, or they would order like orange soda or orange juice or some type of juice. So that was our way in. That was our way to like, kind of like ease their nerves. Like, okay, this is how we can start off the conversation. So we started off just introducing ourselves. Of course, a lot of them were extremely scared. They looked so nervous. Obviously they don't want to be chosen, because they know what that means. But thankfully, we were there to do the opposite. So once we explained that to them, it was, a lot of them just relaxed and they were able to calm down a little bit. Back to the story. So I'm at this very small bar. God tells me to choose a particular girl. So the waitress gets her off stage. We end up talking. She's so sweet. She ends up being so nice and sweet. And she told me all about her life. And I'm talking to her, and I look down at the row, and the people, you can say my colleagues, my friends that are on the other side of the club. I look down, we're all sitting on this one row, and the girl that they're talking to, she ends up crying. She's like bawling her eyes out. And I'm wondering like, oh, that's so sweet. Like maybe she's about to say yes. Maybe she's about to, come back to the organization with us. So I'm talking to my girl, and she's like, oh yeah, I know her. I was like, oh, you guys are friends? She's like, yeah. She has only been here a month, and she doesn't want to be here, and the girl who's in front of me is telling me that she doesn't want to be there either. And I'm explaining to her, you guys don't have to be here. There's other options. And before I know it, my friends are paying the bar fee, and the girl that they are with, she's going in the back, and she comes out and brings all of her stuff, and they're walking out the door. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? So basically when you pay the bar fee, that kind of, to the bar owner, it tells them that you are pretty much paying for the girl for the night. But of course, in our situation, that means we're paying for her to leave the club and, never come back. So, but they don't, the bar owners don't know that. So, because like I said, we're secret agents. But, so I'm sitting there talking to my girl, like, oh my gosh, I think she's leaving. She's like, is that your friend? Do you want to go with her? Like, do you want to, like, what do you want to do? And so the girl that I was talking to, she actually, she was a little bit more hesitant. She wasn't ready to leave quite then. And I said, that's perfectly fine. I'll come back tomorrow night, and I'll come back and talk to you. So that's what we did. So we all left the club, and we kind of, went behind my friends and the girl. They were like hugging her, and like she was still crying, and, it was just a beautiful sight. So she actually walks out the club. We all walk out with her, and she basically is rescued. Like she decided that she wanted to leave just that night. One of the most amazing parts of the story is that when they rescued this young lady, they actually found out that not only is she 19 years old, but she actually had only been at the club for a month. She had never been chosen. Y'all, that is a miracle within itself, which means she hadn't been exploited yet by any man. And we were able to come in and rescue her before that were to happen. Not to put too many personal details out there about her, but yeah, she hadn't been exploited by any man. So God had rescued her already. God had saved her for that month and protected her until we got there. And we found out that she was a 19-year-old worship leader back home in her village. So she actually was already in love with God. She already knew God. And she said that God told her, God told her that same night that we came into that bar, God told her that I'm going to send some people to come rescue you. I cannot make this up. Like she said, I knew that I wasn't going to be here long. Like God told me, like, I'm going to help you, because she had been crying out to God, like, please, I don't want to be here. And God sent us all the way from the United States to come get her that specific night. Like, I can't make this up. It's like amazing. So, you know, of course, it was really overwhelming for her. She was going through a lot. So we tried not to bombard her with questions or like, you know, talk to her like too much. But I remember saying like, oh my gosh, I love your hair. Your hair is so pretty. It's, her hair was like a bright red. But I could tell that she like, you know, I think she had, you know, dyed it. And I said, oh my gosh, did you do it yourself? And she was like, yeah. And she was just telling me like, yeah, that's why they call me Red. And so we just called her Red. So the whole night we just called her Red, and we all went to the hotel, and the older Filipino girls, they kind of took her in, and they, you know, they stayed with her all night, and they were just able to comfort her and talk to her while the rest of us went to bed. So we fast forward to the next night. Like I said, every night we started off with dinner and worship and prayer. So we meet at the coffee shop. We're all eating dinner, and I look up, and there's Red. There's a girl that we call Red, the girl that we rescued last night. So I was like, oh, it's so great to see you. And I was talking to her and just like trying to get to know her. We were all sitting down to eat, and she sits next to me while we're all eating dinner. And I'm sitting there eating, and I just hear somebody in the distance, somebody in the coffee shop, like, oh, Elizabeth, there's Elizabeth. And I was like, and I was looking around like, what? Like, Elizabeth? I've been looking for somebody named Elizabeth. Like, where's Elizabeth? And Red is sitting next to me, and y'all, she looks at me in my eyes. She's like, I'm Elizabeth. My name is Elizabeth. That's my real name. And I just started bawling so hard, like, oh my gosh, like, it's like, I've been looking for you. I've been looking for a girl named Elizabeth. Like, oh my gosh. I was just so surprised because I knew her name wasn't Red, but I'm like, I didn't know her real name was Elizabeth. Like this whole time she had been sitting next to me, and I'm sitting here looking for Elizabeth this whole trip because I knew God told me I would meet, you know, help rescue a girl named Elizabeth. So just to put into perspective, y'all, like I said, it was about 11 of us, but it was probably twice the amount of people in the whole entire trip that were going on the walking street. So it was a lot of us on the walking street, but we split up into different small groups. So it's just crazy that it happens the same night that I was in the same small group as the people who helped rescue Elizabeth. Like I was in that same group. Like, you know, the chances of that happening, it was just crazy because they were all the other groups, and other groups were going to different bars. And like the fact that like I was just there on that same night with them in that small group, it was only 4 or 5 of us. Like in this whole time, God told me I was going to meet Elizabeth. So it was just such a miracle. And not only that, y'all, but the whole time I had been rooming with 3 other women. There was 4 of us to a room pretty much the whole trip. And none of us had really talked about what names that God had given us. But after we all found out that Elizabeth was her real name, tell me why one of my roommates and the trip leader and another girl, we had all gotten the same name, Elizabeth. God told all of us while we were still in the U.S. that we would all meet a girl named Elizabeth, but none of us talked to each other. None of us said anything, but we just held it in our heart. Like we were going to meet this girl named Elizabeth. I didn't tell anybody but my mom. I didn't tell anybody on the trip. Nobody talked about what names that they were looking for, but it all turned out that 4 of us, 4 out of 11 of us all got the same name, Elizabeth. Like, are you kidding me? Like when I found that out, like we all were just like a wreck. Like it's just a miracle. And like, that's just one thing that really helped to like really solidify my relationship with God. Like, oh my gosh, like this is why I really say, like every time I say like you have to pray specific prayers to God, it really helps strengthen your faith. Because if you say something specific like, God, I want you to show me a snowflake that's shaped like this on January 3rd, and like at this time, like he'll do it if it's in his will. Like, you know, like it's so many times in my life where I prayed specific prayers and God came through. So that's why you can't tell me that God's not real. So I just want to encourage you guys to do that. It really will help your faith. Like whatever you're really praying for, don't just ask for a house. Don't just ask for a job. Ask specifically for what you want and what you know that you deserve. And God will do it if it's in his will. And I really believe that. And I wanted to just pop in and give you a quick little update. Like I said, I do consider the Philippines my second home now because I met so many amazing people there my first and second trip. One of the girls is Elizabeth. Her real name is not Elizabeth. She's just so sweet. I keep in touch with her on social media, and we kept in touch throughout the years. Now it's been 4 years now that we've known each other, and she's doing amazing. I actually, our little group was able to visit her several times throughout our second trip to the Philippines. So we got to visit her 4 years later, and she's doing amazing. She was in the program, you know, she went to college, and like now she has a great job. I hope this encouraged y'all. Like I said, I have a lot more videos coming up for you guys, so please hit that subscribe button. Please let me know what other videos you want me to do. I'm open to doing whatever you guys wanted to see. So I really look forward to making more videos with y'all, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks for watching. Started to see 11/11 everywhere. Every single time I would look at the clock. Whew, November 11th, I moved into this apartment.